20 Golden Age stars who dabbled in dark magic and occult rituals. Their talent wasn't natural. These stars were raised from birth by satanic cults that trained them to infiltrate Hollywood and corrupt American values. And their performances were actually elaborate rituals designed to cast spells on audiences. And while some of these allegations were merely dark whispers, others were terrifyingly real. We have verified records of stars who performed intimate magic in the Mojave Desert, leading men who worshipped Baphomet in the Hollywood Hills, and children raised in systems of control so absolute they make modern cults look like summer camps. To understand the true darkness, we must look beyond the screen and into the shadows where these icons lived. 1. Sammy Davis Jr. We begin with a shocker involving a member of the legendary Rat Pack. The 1960s and 70s saw a more explicit embrace of organized occultism, and few memberships were as surprising as that of Sammy Davis Jr. Known for his conversion to Judaism, he briefly but intensely joined the Church of Satan in 1968. Davis was introduced to Anton LaVey at a party and was intrigued by the church's philosophy, which rejected the guilt and shame often associated with religious morality. For a man who had fought for acceptance his entire life, facing prejudice and struggling with addiction, the idea of a religion that celebrated indulgence and ego was intoxicating. Davis invited LaVey to his shows and sought his counsel on how to navigate the shark-infested waters of show business. He was an active participant, wearing a red robe and a Baphomet medallion, and he even had a fingernail on his left hand painted red as a secret sign of his allegiance. He even filmed a pilot for a sitcom titled Poor Devil, where he played a demon working for Lucifer, Christopher Lee, though America wasn't ready to laugh at the devil with their favorite song and dance man. 2. Alla Nazimova. While Sammy dabbled in the 60s, the silent era had its own high priestess. Alla Nazimova was one of the most powerful women in Hollywood, and she used her wealth to create a sanctuary that became legendary for its hedonism and secrecy. She converted her mansion on Sunset Boulevard into the Garden of Allah Hotel, a complex of villas that became the playground for the elite. Rumors swirled that the garden was the site of pagan rituals and sewing circles, a code name for lesbian gatherings in an era when such relationships were forbidden. Nazimova presided over this domain like a spiritual leader. The pool was shaped like the Black Sea of her homeland, and midnight swims often turned into bacchanalian parties that lasted until dawn. It was a place where careers were born and destroyed over cocktails, a cult of freedom in a repressive society where the moral laws of America did not apply. 3. Rudolph Valentino. While Nazimova offered a sanctuary, the greatest lover of the silent screen, Rudolph Valentino, sought guidance from beyond the grave. The Latin lover who made women swoon was privately a man riddled with anxiety, dependent on spirit guides to make his career decisions. Valentino's involvement with the occult was steered by his second wife, Natasha Rambova, a costume designer deeply immersed in theosophy. Together, they participated in automatic writing sessions where they believed they were communicating with a spirit entity named Black Feather, a Native American guide who dictated Valentino's professional choices. This reliance on the unseen alienated him from directors. The most infamous element of his mystic life was his cursed ring, a silver ring with a semi-precious stone he bought despite warnings. He wore it in his final film, The Son of the Sheik, and passed away shortly after at age 31. The ring's journey allegedly continued, bringing misfortune to subsequent owners, reinforcing the idea that Valentino had opened a door he could not close. 4. Theta Bara. Long before the term goth existed, there was Theta Bara, the lie that started it all. While the modern era is filled with conspiracy theories, the origins of this dark fascination trace back to her. Born Theodosia Goodman, a shy Jewish girl from Cincinnati, the Fox studio publicity machine erased her human background completely. In 1915, executives concocted a bizarre biography claiming she was born in the shadow of the Sphinx, the daughter of a French artist and an Arabian mistress, and that her name was an anagram for Arab death. The public was told she possessed ancient arcane powers and was a vampire, shortened to Vamp. Press releases claimed she ate raw beef and blood and predicted the future by reading incense smoke. Interviews were conducted in darkened rooms filled with skulls. She was Hollywood's first experiment in creating a cult of personality rooted in fear. Tragically, she was trapped in this prison of dark glamour, famously saying, "I have the face of a vampire, but the heart of a feminist." 5. Kenneth Anger. Theta Bara was a marketing creation, but Kenneth Anger was the real deal. A child actor who appeared in A Midsummer Night's Dream, he grew up to become the most notorious chronicler of Hollywood sins as the author of Hollywood Babylon. But his own life was far stranger. He was a devout follower of Thelema, the religion founded by Aleister Crowley. Anger claimed that his films were not just movies, but magical rituals designed to invoke Luciferian energies and alter the consciousness of the viewer. His film, Lucifer Rising, was intended to be a literal summoning ritual captured on celluloid. The production was cursed with drama. The original lead actor stole the footage and later became a member of the Manson family. Anger viewed Hollywood not as a dream factory, but as a modern pagan temple where stars were the deities, and he lived his life as a chaotic agent within it. 6. Peter Sellers. Anger sought to invoke entities, but the comedic genius Peter Sellers became one. Sellers was a man who claimed to have no self at all. In interviews, he stated that when he looked in the mirror, he saw nothing, a void waiting to be filled. Sellers believed he was a medium, an empty vessel possessed by the spirits of the characters he played. This went beyond method acting into a form of psychological possession. He relied heavily on clairvoyance and mystics, particularly the astrologer Maurice Woodruff. He refused to wear purple or sign contracts on certain days based on readings. After suffering a massive heart attack in 1964, where he died for over a minute, he claimed to see a white light that gave him no comfort, only detachment. It reached a point where Sellers allegedly tried to contact the spirits of the departed not for comfort, but to ask them how to destroy his enemies. 7. Mae West. Sellers saw ghosts, but Mae West let them write her scripts. Known for her ribald humor and unshakable confidence, West was a devout spiritualist who genuinely believed her screenplays were dictated by departed spirits. She held regular seances in her Ravenswood apartment, inviting mediums to channel voices. She claimed a spirit guide she called the Force would take over her hand and write pages of dialogue in minutes. dialogue that became cinema history. For West, this wasn't dark. It was a source of vitality. She would perform these sessions after midnight, wearing a silk robe, believing natural fabrics conducted spiritual energy better. She believed her intimate energy and spiritual connection were intertwined, fueling her longevity. 8. Linda Darnell. While West found vitality in the spirits, Linda Darnell found a tragic premonition. A stunning beauty of the 1940s, she lived with a terrifying specific phobia: fire. Yet, she was strangely drawn to it, often staring into fireplaces in a trance-like state. She spoke of nightmares about being trapped in burning buildings. In 1965, Darnell was staying at a friend's house in Illinois. Late at night, they were watching one of her old films, Stardust, on television. In a cruel twist of fate, the character she played in the film meets a tragic end. A fire broke out in the living room that night. Darnell, perhaps paralyzed by her lifelong fear, was trapped on the second floor. She passed away from severe burns. The eerie circumstance of her perishing while watching her own image on screen, consumed by the element she feared most, feels like a final fiery ritual she had been waiting for all her life. 9. Marjorie Cameron. Darnell feared the elements, but Marjorie Cameron sought to command them. She is perhaps the only person on this list who was a genuine practicing occultist first and a Hollywood figure second. A striking redhead, she was the wife of Jack Parsons, the brilliant rocket scientist and follower of Aleister Crowley. Together, they performed the Babylon Working, a series of intimate magic rituals in the Mojave Desert intended to summon a goddess and usher in the apocalypse. They believed they were conceiving a moon child. Cameron appeared in Kenneth Anger's films and later in Night Tide, alongside Dennis Hopper. She was a true believer who saw Hollywood as a backdrop for her spiritual work, existing in the shadows where the avant-garde art world met the occult underground. Tyrone Power. Cameron looked to the desert. Tyrone Power looked to the stars. The handsome matinee idol presented a face of dashing heroism, but his private life was steeped in mysticism. His marriage to French actress Annabella introduced him to European mystics who believed in astrology. Power became obsessed with the idea of fate and the timing of his own demise. He told friends he knew he would not live to be an old man, a belief stemming from astrological readings he took as gospel. He would have his charts read before starting any production. This fatalism affected his career choices. He felt he was racing against a celestial deadline. Tragically, his premonition proved accurate. While filming a dueling scene for Solomon and Sheba in 1958, he suffered a massive heart attack and passed away at age 44, an eerie parallel to his father, who also died on a film set. 11. Jane Mansfield. Tyrone Power feared his fate. Jane Mansfield tried to tame chaos. Often dismissed as a Marilyn imitator, she possessed a high IQ and a fascination with the macabre that led her to the doorstep of Anton LaVey. In the 1960s, she became a high-profile presence at the Black House in San Francisco, and LaVey named her a high priestess of the Church of Satan. Photos show her kneeling before satanic altars and drinking from chalices. By day, she lived in her pink palace, but by night, she explored the darkest corridors of the counterculture. The narrative took a chilling turn, involving her boyfriend, Sam Brody. LaVey reportedly despised Brody and placed a curse on him, warning Mansfield to stay away. The couple survived 7 car accidents in a year before the final fatal crash in 1967 that took their lives, cementing her legend as a caution against inviting dark forces into one's life. 12. Bela Lugosi. Mansfield flirted with the dark. Bela Lugosi was consumed by it. The actor who played Dracula in 1931 found himself unable to escape the shadow of the Count. As his career declined and he struggled with morphine dependency, the line between Lugosi and his character blurred. He began giving interviews in character and sleeping in a coffin. Neighbors whispered that he would wander his garden at night in his cape. He became involved with Ed Wood, appearing in films far beneath his talent. When he passed away in 1956, he was buried in his full Dracula cape, a final request that sealed his bond with the character forever. It was the ultimate surrender to the role, a final ritual in a life that had become a performance. 13. Barbara Lamar. Lugosi couldn't escape his role. Barbara Lamar couldn't wait to escape this life. Known as the girl who was too beautiful, she lived a frenetic race against time, fueled by a belief in reincarnation. She was convinced she had lived many past lives and that her current existence was just a fleeting chapter. This justified a lifestyle of extreme excess. She famously said, "I take lovers like roses by the armful." She slept only 2 hours a night, fearing sleep was a waste of time. She treated her body as a vessel to be used up, consuming illicit substances to keep the party going. This wasn't just partying, it was a ritual of consumption. Her body eventually collapsed, and she passed away at age 29. Her philosophy suggests she believed she would simply move on to the next act. 14. George Reeves. Lamar burned out. George Reeves was extinguished. The man who was Superman to a generation found that wearing the cape came with a heavy price. The Superman curse is a well-known legend, but for Reeves, the role was a trap. His passing in 1959 was ruled a self-inflicted end, but the details have always been suspicious. Reeves was having an affair with Toni Mannix, the wife of Eddie Mannix, a powerful studio executive with deep mob connections. On the night of his passing, the guests in his home waited nearly an hour before calling the police. The bullet casing was found underneath his body, a near impossibility in a self-inflicted scenario, and there were no fingerprints. Many believe Reeves was silenced to cover up the scandal, a hit ordered by the powers that be. In this narrative, the cult is the Hollywood studio system itself, protecting its interests with lethal force. 15. Vampira, Maila Nurmi. Reeves was a hero trapped. Vampira was a villain persecuted. Maila Nurmi, known as Vampira, was the original goth icon. But for Nurmi, Vampira was more than a character. It was an identity forged in tragedy. She was a devotee of various mystical schools and maintained an intense friendship with James Dean. The two shared a fascination with the afterlife and often met at Googie's coffee shop to discuss communicating from beyond the grave. They had a pact. Whoever passed away first would try to contact the other. When Dean perished in 1955, a vicious rumor circulated that Nurmi had placed a black magic curse on him. The press vilified her, and she was effectively blacklisted. The woman who played a witch for laughs was persecuted as if she were a real one. 16. James Dean. Vampira's friend, James Dean, had a different connection to death. He was fascinated by the concept of immortality and engaged in rituals to expand his consciousness. But his most famous connection to the supernatural involves his car, the Porsche 550 Spider, he nicknamed Little Bastard. Everyone who saw it felt a sense of dread. Actor Alec Guinness told Dean, "If you get in that car, you will be found lifeless in it by this time next week." 7 days later, Dean was gone. The car's legend grew after his passing. It reportedly fell on a mechanic and was involved in fatal accidents while being transported. The curse of James Dean suggests he may have unknowingly entered into a pact, trading a long life for an eternal, frozen youth. 17. Sharon Tate. Dean courted danger. Sharon Tate was the innocent victim of real evil. The story of Sharon Tate is the most heartbreaking intersection of Hollywood glamour and real-world cult violence. In 1966, Tate was cast in Eye of the Devil, playing a witch, a role that required her to immerse herself in dark themes and rituals. Her husband, Roman Polanski, directed Rosemary's Baby, fueling cultural paranoia about satanic covens. In August 1969, members of the Manson family, a very real, very dangerous cult, invaded her home. Charles Manson targeted the house because it represented the establishment. Tate was brutally deprived of life in a ritualistic manner intended to incite a race war. It was the moment the make-believe darkness of Hollywood movies crashed into the reality of evil. 18. Joan Crawford. The Manson family was a cult of violence. Joan Crawford ran a cult of cleanliness. Her life was a testament to the idea that a family can function like a cult with the parent as the charismatic leader. Crawford was a devout Christian Scientist, but she applied its tenets along with her own obsession with order to her household with tyrannical zeal. She would scrub floors on her hands and knees and demanded the same manic perfection from her children. Her daughter Christina's memoir, Mommy Dearest, describes a childhood that resembles life in a high-control group. Children were subjected to bizarre rituals of cleaning, strict dietary controls, and psychological manipulation. Crawford demanded total adoration and obedience, isolating her children from the outside world. 19. Judy Garland. Crawford ruled her home. The studio ruled Judy Garland. Her life is the ultimate example of the studio system operating as a destructive cult. Signed to MGM as a child, she was placed under a regime of total control. Studio doctors prescribed amphetamines to keep her working 18-hour days and barbiturates to knock her out at night. This chemical leash bound her to the studio's schedule. Louis B. Mayer and the executives were the high priests of this order. They monitored her weight, her dating life, and her every move. It was systematic brainwashing. Handlers were assigned to watch her sleep and monitor her thoughts. She was the sacrificial lamb of the Golden Age. Her suffering transmuted into joy for millions. 20. Marilyn Monroe. Finally, we come to Marilyn Monroe, the alpha and omega of Hollywood sacrifice. Her passing in 1962 is the subject of more conspiracy theories than any other event. Monroe was a seeker. Her library was filled with books on mysticism and anthroposophy. She was desperately looking for a spiritual framework. Some theorists suggest her public persona was a form of glamour magic, a mask so powerful it suffocated the woman underneath. Her diaries revealed a woman of immense intelligence trapped in a labyrinth. She spoke of a red diary containing explosive secrets, a book that mysteriously vanished after her demise. Her housekeeper was seen washing sheets in the middle of the night as police arrived, a strange ritual of cleansing. Her passing feels like the final ritual of the studio era, the moment the goddess was sacrificed to ensure the immortality of her image. But if the studio system was indeed a cult, we have to ask the most terrifying question of all. If they were capable of this, then what kind of rituals are they performing on the stars of today? The golden age may be over, but the darkness hasn't left the hills. These stories remind us that the bright lights of the marquee often cast the longest shadows. Whether these icons sought power through ancient rituals or were forced into the cult of the studio system against their will, they all paid a heavy price. If you believe the true history of Hollywood deserves to be told, please subscribe to Golden Age Files. Do you think the curses were real? Let us know in the comments. Until next time.